A lot of doctors treat diagnosis as a guessing game. Why? Ultrasounds are not done like this when it comes to you have a young woman in front of you presenting symptoms which are affecting the abdominal area. Why is an ultrasound not the go-to?
I felt like part of my body was stolen away by being put on the pill.
In Malta, we have one of the highest level of pesticides in urine.
To have to live with passing out and things like that, it's no, that's not life.
Welcome to the She Word, conversations women rarely have but really should. I'm Sasha, your host for this edition of the She Word, the Young Women's edition, and we're back at the table for a brand new season, kicking off with a topic that's very personal for me and for many young women out there. Today, we're talking about periods, but not just the buy a pad and get on with it version. We're talking about problem periods, the ones that hijack your life, mess with your mental health, make you miss school, work, or even question your own sanity. The kind that get dismissed by doctors, misunderstood by parents, and shamed into silence by society. My own journey with menstruation started when I was 12, and from the very beginning, my periods were always problematic, painful, unpredictable, and emotionally overwhelming. At times, the hormonal shifts led me to dark places I didn't even know how to talk about. And for years, I couldn't understand what was happening every single month. But now I know that I'm not alone. So, this episode is for every girl who's ever felt gaslit by her own body, every young woman who's just been told to just take the pill, and every person who's had to figure it all out on her own. So today, I am joined by three incredible guests, each with their own unique and deeply honest story to share, or else their own expertise. So first up, we have Samy McElhenney, who is 36, originally from the UK and living in Malta for the past 5 years. Samy has been living with endometriosis for most of her life, facing misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis, surgery, pain, and all of the confusion that comes with a chronic condition that people hardly ever talk about. Next, we have Lara Vella, who is 26, an artist whose story is probably familiar to a lot of young women. Lara was put on the pill when she was 16 without a clear diagnosis, and then she had to take healing into her own hands. Her periods were so painful they caused fainting, vomiting, and even fever every single cycle. And today she's figured out how to manage them, but only by creating her own rulebook. And finally, we're joined by Dr. Chiara Frendo Balzan, a well-known face on the She Word. I believe this is her fifth show, and a leading gynecologist who is deeply committed to women's health, and she even spent 11 years working in the UK. She's here today to be our wise words to guide young women to knowing more about what's happening in their own bodies. So, ladies, thank you all so much for being here today, for bringing your stories, your expertise, and for accepting the invitation. This is not an easy topic to talk about, especially on an island like Malta. So, I'm super grateful that you're here. So, I want to start by hearing a bit more about each and every one of you. Maybe you want to introduce yourselves a bit more. Maybe you want to share what your relationship with your period was like at the beginning, what it's like now, whatever you would like to share. Lara, you want to kick us off?
So thank you so much, Sasha, for organizing this whole thing. I think it's one of the main reasons why I wanted to put myself out there. It's because when I was at the age of 16, I didn't find anyone who was speaking about, painful periods. And I think everyone here can agree that when you're going through puberty for the first time, you think that everything is normal. You think that this is just, the way things go. But some things are just not normal and you have to figure out a way or seek out help. So when I was 16, yeah, as you said, as I had explained to you, I was experiencing I would say weird, because apart from the pain, which I was, taught that I would experience anyway, I had fainting spells and periods of time where I would have really strong fever, sometimes even throwing up. So, yeah, I was put on the pill at 16 and was not given any clear explanation as to what could have been causing it. So, yeah, obviously I went on the pill because that was the only option basically. And I just did not feel like my body was mine on the pill. In our earlier discussions, we said that some of you guys actually feel better on the pill, but it made my life even worse.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But so it has like you
I-
have to
I-
get used to it.
There were some pills that didn't work for me at all, but now I found one. But that took years and years of going through pills that didn't work for me.
So, Samy, you want to tell us a bit about your
Of course.
journey?
I mean, my first start to my period was almost exactly the same as you, very, very heavy, kind of all over the place. I had no pattern at all. So when I first went to the doctors about this, they basically just said that you have inconsistent and heavy periods, and that's what that is. Let me introduce you to microgynon. This is going to get you on a schedule monthly, and it's going to make everything better for you.
So you were irregular as well.
And this is 14, 15 as well. So I was put on the pill at 14, 15, and so were all of my friends. Just general sexual health, not even necessarily if they had funny periods. It was just we were all just on the pill.
Yeah.
In England at that time, it was just what to do. But as you were discussing earlier about mental health, microgynon, Yaz, a few ones that I was put on at the beginning, I didn't understand what was happening with me, misdiagnosed with mental health issues as well, and stuff like this. I'll dig deeper into my full story. But yeah, I went on to, as you said earlier, misdiagnosis, which I almost feel like maybe you never got a diagnosis of something.
No, I never did. Yeah.
Maybe there's something undiagnosed there, not misdiagnosed. But yeah, I took a lot of pushing, and one very significant misdiagnosis, probably not as crazy as yours, but yeah, one significant misdiagnosis which led to one professional saying, no, go now to a sexual health clinic, have someone, because basically I was told I had an IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, as I was presenting very similar kind of side effects and symptoms with that. And it was a male doctor. He didn't have a chaperone there. So he said, it sounds like this to me. Here's some tablets that's going to help you with this. Go home and take the tablets. I was crawling to the toilet, throwing up. These tablets made me feel so unwell. Somebody down the line had said suspected endometriosis to me too. And I had said this to this doctor, and he said, you are describing inflammatory bowel disease. Here's your tablets.
How old were you here?
This was, I think, 2021. So yeah, between the age of 20 and 21. And I then rang back my doctor's surgery and I said, should these tablets be making me feel this sick? Spoke to a different doctor, and she said, has anyone examined you? Has anybody felt the inflammation? And I said, no, doctor didn't have a chaperone. So she said, no, go to Slough. That's our sexual health clinic in Windsor. Go to Slough right now. Get someone to see if you're inflamed, because if you are not inflamed, I can see that there's notes here that say suspected endometriosis, and the pain in sex, but everything that you've showed up with today can also be that. I went straight to Slough. Someone checked me out. She said there's absolutely no inflammation. And that's what eventually led to my laparoscopy. But that was 8 years of trying different tablets.
And 8 years of pain.
8 years of pain, heavy bleeding, mental health issues, because some, I mean, I didn't get as bad as suicidal thoughts, but I mean, very dark spaces from some hormonal shifts for sure.
And that comes along with being uncertain of how your body is going to show up for you on that day. So you have not only the hormonal anxiety, but also general anxiety from, am I going to wake up feeling good? Am I going to have to call sick? Am I going to have to, call someone to come over and help me through the day? So it's tough.
This thing of IBD, IBS, you hear it a lot. I mean, for those who have watched previous shows, maybe familiar with my own story, when I was seeking diagnosis for what then ended up being a 33 centimeter ovarian cyst, I heard IBS many, many times. And this is the problem. A lot of doctors treat diagnosis as a guessing game.
Yeah.
They don't actually rule out things. And I don't know why ultrasounds are not done like this when it comes to you have a young woman in front of you presenting symptoms which are affecting the abdominal area. Why is an ultrasound not the go-to?
Yeah.
And that's what decided the thing for you.
Actually, in my clinic, I get the women who come for the annual check and they want an ultrasound. Yet the ultrasound is an indicator if there's pain. So when you do an ultrasound, it's for me to look and see what is going on. It's like taking a snapshot. So if there's pain, I need an ultrasound. It goes without saying. And how am I going to find out what's going on inside? Sometimes when you don't have any symptoms and you do an ultrasound, you probably are not going to find anything. But you cannot not have an ultrasound if there's pain, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I want to ask you now, kind of, okay, we were already touching upon these experiences, these periods which are not normal. And you've said it on a previous show, actually, that periods are not supposed to be painful. If I had to ask you right now, as a gynecologist, what should a normal period look like? Just for the people who are watching as well, who might be suspecting that their periods are actually not normal, since we're often told that pain is normal, that fainting from pain and going to the hospital and not even morphine, like removing the pain, that is apparently normal.
Come on, no. So obviously, just for the viewers out there, what is a period? Let's go one step back, okay? So a period is the body preparing itself for a pregnancy. When our physiologies, the ovaries are getting those eggs to mature, and then the largest egg is ready for ovulation, then our cycle, our hormonal shifts, then ovulate, allow that ovulation to happen, and it should be fertilized. Okay, because this happens every month. Our body is preparing for pregnancy every month. But do we get pregnant every month? No. So when there's no fertilization and that egg is lost, then that lining that has been thickening up all throughout this cycle then is not needed anymore. It's not needed as a bed for that fertilized egg to be implanted. So it's shed. And that is a period. And this is why we have periods, because pregnancy hasn't happened. Okay. Now, if we are, when we want this lining, or we don't want, but when the body needs the lining to be shed, we have what we call prostaglandins. Okay, so this is a hormone that allows cramps, like contraction kind of pain, for that lining to be kind of peeled off. And yes, it can feel like I used to describe it as a tiger is crawling, like those claws inside me. But that should be for about 3 days, every 28 days. Okay, so some slight pain is acceptable because of the effect of these prostaglandins. And when we take pain relief, things like anti-inflammatories, they are anti-prostaglandins because they will lessen the effect of this hormone. What is not normal is to miss school, is to miss work, to need sick leave. Why do we need extra allowance for sick leave? Because we have bad periods. Why do we need to have painkillers all the time, overdose on painkillers? I have to walk about with a TENS machine or a hot water bottle. You cannot get out of bed. You are not eating properly. You're vomiting with pain. That's some kind of pathology going on there. That is not normal. I don't think that's acceptable.
No.
And this is why I keep saying we should not suffer periods. So for these young girls out there, 15, 14-year-old, I got my period when I was 10.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was very young.
Childhood.
But I was prepared. My parents had told us what periods are. And I grew up watching my mum going through these pads, massive pads back in the day. But I felt comfortable speaking to my family about when I got the blood as a young 10-year-old. Like, Ma, there's blood in my panties. And we need to create this safe environment not to suffer, because we are living in a society where maybe it's difficult to speak up if we think we're going to be punished. So a young 15-year-old, even going through O levels and all of that, or going through a parent separation, this and a 15-year-old will catch on this. Like, should I tell my mum that I have pain? And of course, chronic pain has effect on mental health. Of course, pain changes the structure of the brain.
Mhm.
So we cannot ignore these girls. And for the older women out there who also have maybe young kids and young girls, create a safe environment. It's okay to speak up. It's okay. Go to a doctor. And if you're not happy with what the doctor is telling you, go to someone else.
Yeah,
There are plenty of doctors on the
that's my
island.
thing, is keep
Yeah.
pushing.
Definitely.
And also, you can't really compare your period to another girl's period, because one girl might not feel any pain,
Yeah.
and you might be chastised by your peers because you're so sensitive and you're going through all these possibly imagined, symptoms. So there's this also layer of acceptance we need to have even with each other.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's never possible to understand what that other person is feeling,
Yeah.
because we cannot even imagine what that other person is
Yeah.
feeling. And this I'm saying as a person and as a doctor.
Yeah.
So if a patient's telling me I have pain, I'm going to believe that woman has pain, because maybe if I don't have painful periods, it doesn't mean that I'm going to belittle that pain, because for that patient it's valid, it's important. But absolutely.
Take care and enjoy good health. Browns, empowering wellness by providing convenient and innovative health services.
Periods are part of the game, but they don't have to throw you off your game. Try new Always Platinum for up to 100% leak protection, faster absorption, dry feel, and it's more cushiony, so you can focus on your game. It's a new period, always.
Honestly, thank God gynecologists like you exist.
Yeah.
She restored my faith in gynae, and I have no problem saying that on camera, like completely restored my faith. When it comes to you two, do you feel like, did you realize something was off immediately, or because of this kind of what we're always told, and also this kind of belittling as well that you mentioned, did it take a while to realize that it wasn't normal what you were experiencing?
I mean, speaking for myself, when I first started getting the very painful and very weird, I like to say weird because it's not just about the pain, it's about the vomiting, the fainting, but it was hard to ignore. And I was 15, 16, so I was sitting for my O levels, and my first thought was, I can't have this happen in an exam room. So I had maybe 4, 5, maybe 6 cycles, 6 months had passed where it was happening every single month. And I decided, with my mom to go to the gynae and get it checked out. So it was an emergency kind of, because I couldn't trust myself to be okay without having any help or being checked.
No, unlike you, and I'm not slamming my family for this at all, it obviously just shows that I have a history of bad periods in my family, is when I did bring this stuff up, I would speak to my mum and also my grandma, namely my grandma, is she would go, oh yeah, I used to faint as well, so that kind of normal, so when you say how
That's why
long
I
did it
asked this
take,
question, like,
how long did it take? It took me a long time because people around me suffered as well. So, and they didn't have the kind of the conversation that we're having now, especially grandma, generational,
For sure.
She did not have the ability to talk about it. She was just like, oh, I used to pass out on the bus on the way back from work, like as you're discussing now, we're all sat here thinking,
That's
what?
not okay.
That's not okay. Whereas that for her was day in, day out. So when I was talking about mine, she was like, oh, you just take after
And
me
brushed
then.
it off, yeah.
So it took me, my journey into kind of thinking this isn't normal took me a little bit longer, I think. And because I was speaking to doctors, because my main thing was flow, very, very heavy, and how often, and pain. But really I was struggling with how much products I'm using at school and embarrassment and stuff like that. And yeah, I was just told, take this pill and it will slowly level you out and everything will be good. And then I was on a mission to find the right pill that would do that for me. because I was essentially just diagnosed with heavy and inconsistent periods for years and years and years and years.
Which is very abstract as a
And then
diagnosis.
IBS too, but I still have IBS.
Yeah.
And that's like a separate connected. I'm not sure. We were talking about gut earlier. But yeah, so IBS, and then later came the IBD into endo thing. But it took me a long time, but not because my family did anything wrong, but I think just because of the history that we have
Exactly.
in the family, it
They were
felt
also
normal to
affected by
them.
that.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, oh goodness, daughter, let's look at, it was like, we're all the same then,
Yeah.
kind of convo.
I think I was lucky in that respect because none of the women in my family had experienced the same thing I was experiencing, besides one aunt who I wasn't close with. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a contrast for me.
I think what is also different, listening to both your stories, the ages. So we are learning in the medical sector, obviously in healthcare. I always say this: there are things we don't know. And every year there's new research that comes out, and even I say, oh my goodness, so that's why that's that, and I make the connection because there's something that you have a gut feeling about, and then they show you the research finally.
Yeah.
Right. And your story is not unique, sadly enough.
Yeah.
But nowadays we have more diagnostic tests, and we are learning more about scanning and what else we can do to get to the diagnosis. And yes, I mean, 10, 15 years ago, and I've been practicing medicine 20 years now, I didn't know about endometriosis when I was 15 years ago. I didn't know about what you were going through back then, so maybe, I mean,
there was a lot less knowledge then.
No excuse now,
But I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying.
but it doesn't make your suffering any less.
Yeah.
It doesn't make your suffering any less.
But there was less knowledge. I think you're right. I think you're right.
Samy, I want you to talk a bit more about your experience. So you mentioned that your journey with endometriosis began very early on, but it took many years to get a proper diagnosis. So can you walk us through a bit like what that time looked like for you?
Yeah, I mean, going through school was pretty normal. I had sick days with my periods and things like that. Going into work, so when I left school, so as I said, I was diagnosed around the age of 20 and 21. So I had left school, I was kind of looking at what careers I was getting into and stuff like that. And I was really affected by this. It really kind of stunted my where am I going with life, because every job that I started or enjoyed and things, I'm not able to communicate, hey, I have endometriosis and this, that, and the other. So I'm just off with periods. So eventually I'm in a HR meeting where someone's going, hey, listen, you've had your sick days and it's every month and see you later, so work, it was really impacted. It really impacted my work and career path, let's say. Like when I was looking at where I was going, looking at all my friends who were at uni, college and had these plans going on, I was someone who left school and went straight into work. So yeah, at one point my mental health was really crashing around this, because it was like, I want to be successful and climb these ladders like my friends around me. However, I'm faced with just periods. It wasn't until the misdiagnosis, something happened. I was with a boyfriend many, many years ago, and something happened during an intimate moment, which was just like, no, like that is not period. That was pain out of nowhere. I kind of like jumped off the bed, and we were both sat there shocked, looking at each other, and we were like, that's not a normal reaction. Are you okay? Am I okay? That's what made me go to that doctor appointment eventually, who said it's IBD. Somebody had said, someone down the line, I wish I could remember who it was, and at one point I'd love to gain access to my full UK medical record, but somebody had said that my symptoms, she said, yeah, it could be something, sounds a little bit like it could be, let's put down suspected endometriosis, but it just went whoosh, because no one kind of explained what that was. She just said a word that it was suspected, and then no one ever really picked that back up again. So as I said, I went back after this one incident, got into the doctor's surgery and explained everything. And as I said, I wasn't able to be examined properly, and I was misdiagnosed. I mean, as I'd had IBS and have had other issues and things, but now I'm 36, I think I can make connections with these things and see that they are connected. Whereas growing up, you know, the IBS was probably the first thing I was told, and that's what everything was. You have bad periods and you have IBS and things like that. But it really affected my career for sure, growing up and looking at the success of my friends and things like that. Also being deemed as lazy and flaky
Yeah.
is my life. You know, I've lost friends, and that's okay now, because the friends who understand are the important friends, you know? So, you know, I can have plans. I now don't really make plans. I don't know if anyone's like this. You know, can you come? I'm like, if I can come, I'll come. Now I don't say yes. And then this is my own thing. It's my own little PTSD of how I've dealt with friends in the past, is I'll say yes, and then I won't go due to being ill. And then I've mismanaged expectations, and then they're disappointed in me, and I'm a bad friend. So now, for instance, I had somebody mention something next weekend, and I said, if I'm able to come, I will come. Otherwise, like, no. So I just don't commit anymore. Like, that's just my life. And but that's something at 36 I understand. Growing up, I felt like a really rubbish friend because I was flaking out over, you know, plans. I wasn't going to someone's 21st birthday party or something, or some big deals. I think my sister's like some big education things that I missed, skipped because I wasn't feeling well. Bad period.
Yeah.
So I wasn't looked at. Now people are like, oh wow, I get the recognition of like, she's in pain, stay in bed. You know, people understand it more. But back then, when I was just like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't come. I've got bad periods. People would just be like, what?
It's kind of like the standard
No, like,
scapegoat excuse.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, she's not doing PE again because she's got her period. It's like, I wish now I could go back and speak to 15-year-old Samy and tell her, you know, because it was such a confusing navigating time.
I actually wasn't expecting this like social aspect to emerge so much.
It's been a huge part of my life, being a flaky friend or whatever, or committing to anything big, or even booking flights or a big holiday. I now go and pay to see my doctor, and I will get a prescription of Sodexo, and I will get Valium. These aren't things I take together, but these are Valium for my anxiety, pill in a pocket. I will have half. That's something, you know, you have your rule book on things that help you feel better.
Yeah.
I do have exercises, and I do have things holistically that I do. But because of my health PTSD, let's call it, if I'm going abroad, doesn't really matter where or for how long, I would just have to make sure that I might not even touch those tablets while I'm abroad. But knowing that they're there helps, because...
So with your flare-ups, like they can just happen anytime.
As in, I have savage periods, that just goes without saying. And today, for instance, I'm sat here with a hot water bottle. I've got the pigmentation right now because I've been having pain for a few days, but it hasn't been debilitating pain. Like, I spoke to my mum before I came, and I said it's almost quite fitting, but it's that functional pain. Me and my mum have a number system going, so it's 1 to 10, and if I say functional pain, she won't worry. But yeah, if I'm above 6, she'll check in and just, do you need anything? She's really good with that sort of stuff. But she's been my main cheerleader, you know, like as if flaky friends and stuff like that. No one's got it. Whereas my mum's just been like the constant through this journey, at least.
Oh yeah, for me too. My mom's always the nurse at home. So
That's
thank
so
God for
important,
moms.
to find like someone who actually takes you seriously.
Yeah, because when you've got doctors, I mean, even I can see the pain in her face, you know, walking away from an appointment being told it's just a painful period again. I can see it's heavy on her, you know. So when I came back with the diagnosis, the laparoscopy, he came round, the doctor, with images of what was inside, and they ran dye through, and that was okay. So, you know, and I just felt so seen. So the first thing he actually said to me, he walked in, the curtains opened, and he went, "Wow, you have a high pain threshold." And I was like,
Finally,
do I?
someone.
Yeah, okay. I think I do. And then he showed me and explained, and I was like, yeah. Because there was one point where I did a beauty shoot for Salon International. So it was just my face, just for the haircut. And just like we had here, we had some makeup before we sat down to do this, and we were getting ready, and I was sitting on a stool the whole time getting my makeup done. I went to stand up and I couldn't stand up straight. I was in like this position. So they kept me set down for the shoot, and I went straight back to my hairdresser's house because I was friends with them. Got onto their bed and rang my mum, and I was straight to sleep. And that my mum was like, that was a big indicator for her, because even if I'm ill or the flu or whatever, I'm still pretty functional, but my body was just like shut down. But that wasn't around the diagnosis time. That was just like, that was still being told that this is heavy, crazy periods.
How many doctors do you think you saw before you got a diagnosis?
Wow. I think medical professionals, because some would have been not necessarily doctors, some would have been like nurses in the sexual health clinic and things like that. Let's say I probably saw 3 a year for 8 years. Someone do the maths. That's at least for sure.
24.
At least. That's at least for sure. But even with the diagnosis, I was discussing earlier, in England and living here, you sit down, because especially because I moved country, I had to meet new gynecologists and find the right fit. So I went through a few and sat down with one person, and they were just like, yeah, just have a baby. Just get pregnant and have a baby. Have you heard that?
I've heard it before.
You've heard that.
Why?
I think because some people that do have endometriosis
Better love.
do have kids.
So for 9 months, you're not feeling
then
it.
they feel
Because it actually is treatment. but then you have that child for 50 years at least.
have a baby. What if I didn't want to? Also, it's quite an insensitive thing to say. The first thing I was told when I had endometriosis, and the dye did run through. So it was like, okay, you have endometriosis. We have ran dye through you. So just so you know, right now, you should be fertile. But if this goes untracked, if you don't get this seen to, if it doesn't get removed or shrunk or whatever, this will cause infertility. So yeah, for someone to sit down to me when I was 34 to be like, have a baby, I was like, I don't even know if I can, let alone want to, And then the other thing is that, again, another professional. This was here in Malta. I have other stories in England, but I'll stick to Malta because we're here talking in Malta. I had found a lady, a doctor. I'd been told about her via other doctors, and basically someone said to me, the reason why we don't do, you can debunk this if this is false, the reason why we don't do many laparoscopies here in Malta is because we just don't have many people confident to do good enough laparoscopies. But we do have this lady, she's very confident, she does them, we can put you a referral. And I was like, yes. So I got put on to her referral, and I was very excited to kind of meet her. I'd never met her, which is why I can't even give you a name right now. Very excited to meet her and talk to her and go through the Mater Dei system and get this done. But I collapsed in the street in Gzira. I was bent over. Someone sort of said to me, are you okay? And as soon as they touched me, I woke up being wheeled into the polyclinic in Gzira Health Centre there. They were absolutely fantastic. I regained consciousness, and they were like, what's happening? And I just mentioned endometriosis briefly, and they were like, right, morphine, call an ambulance. And they were absolutely fantastic. I went straight to Mater Dei. And talking about painkillers and other things, Buscopan is not to be overlooked for these things. I was given obviously morphine, but I was on a Buscopan drip, which was one of the best things I've ever experienced for the
Spasms.
Exactly, because I basically sometimes I feel like I'm having a baby.
Exactly.
With the sheer amount. Yes. So when I was on that drip, I thought it was this. I was like, "What painkiller have you got me on?" They're like, "We have you on intravenous Buscopan," and I was like, "Wow." But so this happened, and I woke up in hospital, and kind of here I am. But I think I'm okay because I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'll just get to see this doctor earlier. Maybe I'll have my laparoscopy earlier. So then the nurse comes around in the morning. She says, the doctor will be in soon. She'll come and, see what's going on. I said, okay, thank you so much. the curtains open and this woman walks in and she says, "Hi, I'm your gynae," introduces herself. And I said, "It's really nice to meet you." And just a little bit of background. And I kind of sort of went, "Don't worry. I mean, I've got a plan. I'm on the way to seeing this lady and to get a laparoscopy." Her first thing she said to that was, "You are far too young to have a laparoscopy." I was like, I mean, I know I look. I know I don't look. But I mean, I had one at 21. What are you saying? So this put so much fear in me. And she then carried on to say that because of now I've presented myself into A&E and that she is the on-site gynae, she's now my care gynae. I'm now, the pathways that I was on is now gone. So I was in tears being wheeled down to some office administration place where I was like, please, and not, yes, what she said scared me. You know, you're too young for a laparoscopy. And no, I'm not, you know. And
I don't think there's an age limit.
No,
it's a procedure. There's no age limit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I find it scary that you sit down with professionals who are supposed to look after your womb and your ovaries and your uterus, and they just, for me to say these craziest things, too young for a laparoscopy, go and have a baby. Just like, wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned laparoscopy a few times. I'm going to turn to you. What is a laparoscopy?
Laparoscopy is the fancy word, the medical word for keyhole surgery.
Exactly.
So it's a procedure where we look through the belly button and look inside the abdomen. Sometimes we do a diagnostic laparoscopy, and that's where we also do the dye test, because endometriosis can cause adhesions and twist or kink exactly and block the tubes, and that is why we say endometriosis can be associated with infertility. But it doesn't mean that whoever's got endometriosis cannot get pregnant. Okay, because it makes no sense is associated with infertility and then go and have a baby. Okay?
Yes.
So yeah, but with laparoscopy, what we do is we put a camera through the belly button and then make 2 or 3 small incisions in the abdomen where we use instruments. Okay, so we're operating with tiny incisions rather than a big cut. It doesn't mean that the operation isn't any bigger on the inside. So whatever we're doing on the inside is just as big as if you had a big cut, but the healing, the recovery is quicker. What we do is through the belly button, we inflate the abdomen. So we put gas, so that causes a bit of space. We need to create space. Otherwise, because everything is collapsed on top of each other, we cannot look. And with the endometriosis, we look to see if there's these adhesions or puckering or double blood vessels. Things are stuck in endometriosis. The one limitation of the laparoscopy is we can only look at surfaces. So we cannot look through and through. If there's endometriosis in the bowel, then it is difficult to identify.
Yeah.
This is why we can use ultrasound. And with ultrasound, it's a nice investigation because you can move with ultrasound. With the internal probe, you can actually push organs away. So if they're stuck, if there's adhesions, then that ovary is not going to budge. Okay, and then we can see whether the ligaments are shortened, because that twists the uterus kind of out of shape.
Yeah.
And this is why there's pain with intercourse. Sorry, I'm moving away from your question.
No, it's
The
fine. It's
laparoscopy.
fine. I just wanted to kind of ask you, so for anyone who's watching, we're mentioning all of these fancy words.
Oh, really? I wish that everybody had your knowledge on ultrasound. But also we were discussing maybe a lot of my ultrasounds were many years ago, although I did have one in Mater Dei 2 years ago. And they told me that they couldn't see anything. And then a year later, the laparoscopy did show, that we got rid of some stuff. I've just never had a ultrasound show my endometriosis. Do you think that that's down to the person doing the ultrasound, or is it kind of like a my body thing? Maybe my body doesn't show it. Like, that.
So what we are looking at, so endometriosis, as you know, there's endometriomas, which are the chocolate cysts. So that's really clear to identify on ultrasound. Okay, and with ultrasound, as with anything else, there's the basic ultrasound and there's advanced ultrasound. And I must say that we now have a fabulous endometriosis team in Mater Dei. I was lucky enough to work when I was in the UK in every hospital I've worked in the tertiary centres with the endometriosis teams, which meant we were getting referrals from all over Wales, because I was in Wales, with the teams I worked with. So in that respect, I'm different. My experience is different to what the Maltese people have here.
Yeah.
But
Well, even
we
some-
are getting there.
Even
We're
some
getting there.
English people would probably be sat there going, "What do you mean?
Yes.
Ultrasound?"
Oh, yes, I
But
know. It's
I
sad.
think maybe
yes.
with the technology now, and I think people have the thirst for this knowledge now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
exactly.
think
Exactly.
before there wasn't this much thirst for the knowledge on endo and PCOS or cysts and all these things, whereas now we're talking about it more. It's harder to ignore, so the studies should be making more sense.
Yes.
And I think
It's
women now
definitely
we're taking our own sexual health and, just feminine health in general far more seriously than we did before.
Yeah.
And we have so much more knowledge on the internet. So things are far more accessible than they used to be.
Yeah.
Now it just takes, I think, the courage to actually speak out and have these conversations.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
With the ultrasound, so as we were talking before, in the right hand, you can get a diagnosis. But there are colleagues who don't know how to scan, but they know to refer for an MRI.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the MRI, again, you can see through the layers. The difference with an MRI is you cannot move, so you cannot see if there is anything stuck. But the radiologist can see if there's thickening of the ligaments. So we do have diagnostic investigation. We can do this. So most of my colleagues, if they don't know how to scan for endometriosis, they know to refer for an MRI.
Something about the way you bounce makes me want to keep you around my mind. My mind. Something about the way you sound shakes me up and makes me get down on my, oh my. Because you feel me away. You feel me away. Because you feel me away. You feel me away. Because you feel me away.
So moving a bit away from endometriosis, I want to go to Lara a bit here. So you weren't diagnosed with anything specific. You were never diagnosed and you were just put on the pill.
Yeah.
So what was it like navigating this kind of pain without having a name for it? Just knowing that it's period. But also, do you feel like you were dismissed quite early on by your doctor by just being told to be put on the pill?
Yeah, at that time, I was very much into holistic health and I didn't want to fuck up my hormones, I guess. I didn't want to, I was very much all about everything natural. So my worst fear was for the doctor to tell me, you need to be put on the pill. But I didn't want to, as I explained before, have to deal with these experiences. So I did end up, being put on it. So that's why I ended up doing my own research and using the internet as a tool to learn more about how diet can impact your periods and your hormones in general. And that led me to the decision to just not eat meat anymore.
Okay,
'Cause-
interesting.
Yeah, since 17, I've been, well, not vegetarian anymore because now I eat fish, but for a very long period of time, I was completely vegan. And that really helped out the symptoms, because I was only on the pill for 6 months after I was put on. And yeah, that really helped. But again, I had to do my own research.
And what worked with your body?
Yeah, it might not work with other bodies.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you found something that worked with you. With you. I do you know the amount of girls I get, and mummies bring young girls who are suffering from periods, because we now are talking about feminine health. Sometimes it's tricky to get a diagnosis this young, but I speak to the to the mum and the daughter, because we shouldn't suffer the periods.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there is a problem with flow, with pain, or with the regularity of the period, one treatment is hormonal treatment, and it might not work for everyone.
Maybe I wasn't on the pill for long enough to see a difference because the pain had gone, the symptoms had gone on the pill. However, I did not feel comfortable taking the hormonal cycle away from me. I felt like I was not in control of my own body. I felt like what I had gotten used to being ovulation and other phases, I had gotten used to that to a certain degree because I was lucky that I've always been pretty regular on my periods. So I already knew how to navigate and to expect certain highs and lows. So having that being taken away from me, I felt like part of my body was stolen away by being put on the pill, even though it did help with the symptoms.
I can definitely relate to this. I mean, I was put on the pill after the surgery to make sure I don't get other ovarian cysts. I don't have PCOS. I just have the one-off monstrosities that my body tends to create, I guess. But for me, when I was put on the pill, it was a decision that was very hard for me to accept. And the first pill I was put on, which was the Yaz, I stopped it after 9 days because it made me suicidal. And this is something that I referred to kind of in the opening of the show, but my own periods, they were always painful. I do recall taking sick days from school, especially day 1, day 2. Day 2 used to be the absolute worst, very heavy as well. But for me, apart from the physical symptoms, I would say the emotional and mental ones were the worst, because every month around my period, especially the few days leading up to it, I used to get so depressed. I used to self-harm as well at some point in my life. And when it used to happen, it was always around my period. And this was something which took me a long time to kind of catch up on. And that's how bad they used to get for me, in the sense that mentally they were just completely just
It just shatters you.
shatters.
Yeah.
Totally. Now I think back then, okay, PMS, like bad PMS, but now there's also PMDD, which is like premenstrual
Dysphoric disorder.
which is basically
When you cannot function.
exactly.
PMS is symptoms, and PMS can be different for different women, be it being emotional, self-harming, irritable, wanting to kill someone. But PMDD is when you cannot function in life. You just stop, and wanting to kill someone and genuinely self-harming are real. And that is when it becomes a pathology, and that is when it needs to be treated. And this is because of the drop in hormones. So when we have that sudden drop, we feel it. And I mean, there's ways around it, and I think maybe you don't know, but maybe you do. Is this what you're referring to, cycle syncing?
Yes.
Okay,
But it's not just doing certain things around times around my period. It's throughout my life.
throughout your life.
Yeah. So I don't eat certain foods around my period.
So you don't change.
No,
So cycle
no.
syncing, because this is a newish term, is you eat according to your cycle,
Yeah,
your
exactly.
phase of cycle. So your luteal phase and your follicular phase. So Lara has discovered this without your body was telling you.
Yeah.
You're listening to your body.
And it did make a big dent, I still, obviously, I get these one-offs where the last one was in August, just a few months ago, where I was walking towards the kitchen and I just started hearing ringing in my ears. I started seeing stars, and thank God my mom was in the next room. So I told her, Mom, I'm about to faint.
Do you
And I
just
did.
climb down on the floor now? Because I like get myself
Yeah.
on the floor and I'm like, I'm gonna go.
I lost strength in my body. It was like, shut down, kind of. And she brought me the bucket because she knows the routine now. Just
throw up
throw up,
after. As soon
yeah.
as you wake up, you're sick.
Yeah, exactly. And she had to carry me to bed, kind of. So yeah, they still can happen, but now I know why. Like, I can look back in August and in the month before and see I was drinking a lot, I wasn't eating very healthy food, so I should have expected that to happen. So it's still something which I have to be very careful about.
But to get a diagnosis.
Yeah,
Mm.
I need to.
Because you're young. You're young.
Mhm.
This is not meant to be a consultation.
Yeah.
But even for the women out there, suffering is not right. Okay? Because there might be pathology.
Mhm.
And maybe now you're okay, but when you're 36, it's not. And you would have some damage that you cannot go back then. Okay, so please do get a diagnosis. And for all the people out there as well.
Yeah, and it feels better once you have it as well. I mean, it's still not the best news ever being told you're chronically ill with
And it
this
gives it
thing,
a name,
but
at
at least
least, yeah.
exactly it gives it a name. We're just calling yours still bad periods when we know that that's not what it is, you know, and that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Makes it more real, I think, as well, to get a diagnosis, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like, you know what you're actually dealing with.
Like I said, you can now have the conversation with work, with friends, with family. You know, now your life can make sense. Whereas before, you know, sorry, I'm not coming to this or whatever. It doesn't make sense, or not turning up to work. At least the conversation might be a bit easier with some people.
Yeah, that's true.
And this element of listening to your body, I think it was once said on a previous podcast about like knowing what your normal is and not normalizing the pain that you might be going through. So that when your body is actually trying to tell you something, you can actually be in a position to listen, because you know that, wait a second, but this doesn't really seem normal, you know? Did you ever feel as if like your hormones were taking over your life? So pain aside, like the hormonal aspect, you said it yourself, like we can feel the changes in hormones. I'm very sensitive to them, extremely sensitive to them. And I'm wondering if you maybe can tell us even more about these kind of hormone changes that we go through naturally throughout our cycle, which causes these even drops of energy. So
And anxiety.
yeah.
Anxiety. And I mean, during ovulation, there's a little bit more testosterone, for example. That's why we're more horny around that time, because we need our body to be horny to get that egg fertilized. Again, we don't get pregnant every month. But even with neurodivergence, so there's ADHD, ADD, we know that fluctuations in hormones, and with the hormonal therapy. So this is new research last year, and I was in awe of this, and like, oh, that makes sense. When women are on the pill, on cyclical hormones, and there's mood issues and irritability, and that they cannot cope, they need to be on continuous and not cyclical.
So someone with ADHD as well. This is something to know.
And because it's so
Yes.
common,
Yes.
I am now putting because I cannot make a
Yes.
diagnosis of ADHD.
This changed my life.
Oh my
actually.
goodness.
I put women on
just blown my mind.
continuous hormone, not cyclical,
Yes.
because we don't need a period.
No.
Unless you're trying to get pregnant, you don't need a period.
No. Yeah.
Starting to take the pill back to back was a decision I made around the last summer. I had started the pill again. So I mentioned a bit before, I was never comfortable with taking the pill, but I do believe that I am better off on it than off it.
Yeah.
And after many attempts, I tried Yasminel, and then I was on Mercilon for quite some time. I think I was on Mercilon for around 2 years. And then I stopped Mercilon. I was actually at a really good place. I was like, you know, I'm in a really good place mentally. I feel good. I'm like, this is the time to stop the pill.
That's why you've been feeling good.
Exactly. My body was used to it. And the year that followed, I got very bad hormonal acne that just wasn't going away. My mental health took many, many, many steps backwards. And eventually, at the beginning of last year, I found another ovarian cyst. So then at that point, I was like, no, I'm not dealing with this again.
Let's
Like,
get it back to back.
yeah, I'm already one ovary less. Like,
Yep.
if I lose another ovary, I'm just ovary
Free.
non-existent, like nothing, you know. So I was still 24 at the time. I'm like, no, this is not a decision I want to be making now to end up without any ovaries. So then I was like, still against my kind of instinct in a way, but I was like, I will be better off on it. I will feel better in my situation. I'm not generalizing for anyone. This is just my situation. And around last summer, so after a few months of being back on it, I started taking it back to back. And it completely eliminated my still very bad PMS, if we can call it PMS, because it always remained consistently bad throughout my life. And when I was on the pill, taking it cyclical, the week that I would stop, bam, like it's a complete disaster. And then I can't function, and then I can't show up, and then I'm canceling things. And if I'm filming a show, I feel like I really can't do it. And all of this, fighting with my loved ones, like everything, like you name it, like my whole life would just So just to kind of support what she's saying with my own experience, it pretty much changed my life when it comes to mental health.
I broke through with my period still. So I would taking them back to back, I would still bleed.
And then you take a break.
However, no, yes, every 3 months. Every 3 months they would tell me to take a week off.
So you were tricycling.
But I would break through back to back. The only time I have managed to stop my periods is now at 36. Taking back to back, everything that I've ever tried back to back helps with anxiety and stabilizing a lot of stuff. And it's never been as heavy, but I always still managed to break through with periods back to back. But it did change my life mood-wise, because I mean, growing up I was diagnosed with GAD, I was undiagnosed ADHD for a long time and stuff like this, and I was taking my pill, like you say, with the week off, and that would be where, like you say, just disaster. But I wasn't putting that together. No one put that together, not for a long time. So it was just she's just anxious, she's general anxiety, does she have bipolar, is what's going on, all of this stuff,
or just it's just normal PMS, like which is even worse, because no, this is not normal PMS, becoming like dysfunctional from a mental standpoint is not just PMS. That's not what PMS is.
No. And it's crazy when you can look back at that week and feel so headstrong and be like, wow, I was so irrational. And really see it from that hindsight's a bitch, because you're like, oh, I really did over-exaggerate and I really shouted for no reason. And, but in the moment, it's real. Like, I feel hurt. I feel anxious. This world is crashing around me. And what you're saying isn't true. And then next week, you're like, okay, I can see it all so clearly now. You were probably right. And this was my hormones.
And we have 1 week of that and then another week of period. And then like 2 weeks out of 4
of peace.
Where's the break?
Literally only half our life we're saying.
And then there's menopause. Because you girls,
wait to look forward to.
Oh my goodness.
So going back to these rules you created, you mentioned like not drinking alcohol around your periods, stopping to eat meat. Are there any more that you do? Because I'm super curious about this.
Lots of rest. So honestly, before COVID, I was still not really paying attention to how I felt throughout my cycle. But being unemployed for a few months gave me the space to kind of really listen to my body. And I thank COVID for that, because I was able to rest and really feel my body through every single stage of my cycle. So nowadays, as I was telling you before, if I know that my period is coming next week and I feel a bit more tired than usual, I won't feel ashamed to take that nap to cancel those plans. Honestly, I mean, obviously, if I can. So rest is a big thing for me. Also, just generally eating as healthy as possible, as organic as possible. I don't eat processed food as much as I used to before. I haven't eaten beef or chicken or any meat since I was 18. I've really cut down on dairy. So I was vegan for 8 years, and that's really helped me. And I've started introducing cheese a little bit more into my diet. But it's mostly hard cheeses, so no runny, no like jbane. It's or very rarely, if so. And that really helps. And no alcohol and no smoking, rest. That's basically it.
in general avoiding things that can trigger inflammation, right?
Exactly. I don't know the proper science behind most of this. Is just trial and error. This is just what works for me. What I do know, what I have found out through my research, but you can debunk me if I'm wrong. But the reason why eliminating meat made such a difference for my diet is because there aren't so many hormones now, or artificial hormones, which I'm ingesting. That's something I found out, and that's why I had initially gone vegan. It's because dairy and meat in general is produced through the female body of the animal, and in order to produce more meats, more dairy, more eggs, we need to make these animals go through more. They need to be fed more hormones, basically, more injected with more hormones, and that is going to be found in your body later on, and probably make your hormones more stronger than they should be. I don't know if you'd like to comment on that.
Not sure.
I don't know.
New info.
I have
yeah.
no idea. This is news.
Okay.
So I will look into this. This
Yeah.
is interesting. So meat and vegetables, it's not okay for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to also be careful because there are people who have bad intolerances to vegetables as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be careful to say, listen, this is your story, and it's beautiful that it worked for you. And we do know as well that there's a blood type that is associated with even what you like more.
Okay.
So people who are type A, for example, they tend to not like meat. So possibly you're type A. And people who are type O would need meat. They do better with meat.
Okay.
But that's interesting about the hormones. Obviously, there's meat and meat.
Yes.
Sure. Fresh
and vegetables and vegetables. So if there's fresh vegetables, and I'm doing functional medicine now as well. So I get bored with normal stuff. So I'm studying at the ripe old age of. And one statistic was that in Malta we have one of the highest level of pesticides in urine. In our urine, not on the vegetables or the plants, but in our urine that was tested. So yes, obviously we're going to ingest, and you rightly said, as organic as you can. But we need pesticides because otherwise our farmers won't have any crop.
Yeah.
But that also means that what are we doing to our bodies? And this is where we go back to listen to your body. Is the food you're eating helping you, or is it making you worse? In your case, cutting out whatever you cut out has helped you, and it worked. And it worked. And sometimes this is our little exercise, and this is what I tell my patients. Sometimes you need to be your own doctor.
Yes.
You know your body more than I know your
Yes,
body. You come to me for half an hour every year. That's it, So yeah.
But that's difficult sometimes when you're always told by professionals or by peers, oh, you're just imagining things. Or when I first decided to go vegan, my parents, and out of worry and out of love for my health and love for me, they were very apprehensive about the step. But eventually, it was the best decision for me.
Yes, and it's okay to go vegan. Make sure that you're taking the correct supplements, of course.
Now I'm no longer vegan. I'm like pescatarian, so I found like a balance. But
and you found what works for you.
Yeah,
I've been a vegetarian since I was 14 years old. 11 years this December.
Wow! Happy anniversary!
Thank you. So it has always worked for me. Like I don't have issues with my blood. I'm not anemic. I never liked meat, and I don't like the idea of killing someone for my own gain. But that's me. But I do feel that, for example, red meat does contribute to inflammation. I know that. So as someone who has had problems with inflammation in the past, I do feel like my diet has kind of helped in a sense. But also protein. I have to protein.
Yes.
And fiber.
Protein makes
So
a
important.
massive difference. Like prioritizing protein for women's health is not talked about enough.
And talk about debunking myths really quickly while we're on diet, is talking about red meat, is I used to think that red meat was a source of iron. Therefore, around my period, I should have some steak and some beef and things, but not knowing that endometriosis is a condition that shouldn't be having things that are going to cause inflammation.
Yeah.
So me having the burgers and the meat and thinking that I was wasn't listening to my body. I was like reading papers and doing that instead of like listening to my body. So I would go in for if listen to my body around my period, I just want chocolate and sugar. What do you do? What do you?
I mean, just take the
Is that what
chocolate.
that is? Because I need to find other substitutes at the moment, because that has to be my biggest addiction, I think, is sugar. And around my period.
And sugar also contributes to inflammation.
That's the biggest.
It's a big one.
So
big
it's
one.
it's a bad thing for me. So so like honey, natural sugars, is that still okay? Or is that just as bad? I'll look into it.
Why do we crave chocolate around our period?
that's so
Because of the
interesting.
stress.
Yes.
When you
It's
stress,
soothing, kind of.
Yes, this is why we call it comfort food as well.
Yeah.
But even pasta, then creamy pasta. That's
Gluten's really bad for me.
Yes.
Yeah, I've cut that
Gluten
down a lot
It's
now.
bad for muscles. It's bad
Yeah.
for ADHD. It's bad.
I read that pomegranates can help because of the iron, right?
Why are you asking a gynecologist? You should get a nutritionist next time
for all the answers.
But with iron supplements, talk about iron. Iron is very inflammatory, so it causes gut inflammation. So anyone who's out there taking iron, they need to alternate days. Okay, so and it doesn't work taking iron during the period.
Yeah.
I tend to, if there's someone who's got iron deficiency, alternate days iron for maximum 3 months. Not long term.
Yeah, I didn't know until very recently that iron is like bad for inflammation. I just had no idea.
I actually had no idea until this moment, to be honest.
Yeah, no way. No, mine was in
Same.
the last year. Mine was in the last year because a friend of mine, we would literally talk about. She basically doesn't eat much red meat, but she would say, around my period, we'll get the steak in and we'll do that. And then it wasn't until she sent me, this case study and was like, we've been doing it all wrong, and I read it and I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Like, so I'm basically just like giving myself the stuff to like, let's flame up, let's get inflamed. And I thought I was like giving myself some source of iron and doing what's good for me. So now stopping, and I think rather than reading what's good for somebody or what works or whatever, like you just said, be your own doctor, that hits the nail on the head, because one size does not fit all.
Yes, I cannot tell you what you should not eat. Like, for example, if I eat onions or garlic, that will kill me.
So you have IBS?
No.
No.
But I ended up in hospital eating vegetables.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm the exact opposite of you.
Yeah.
But how did I figure it out? By
Trial
just
and error.
trying to eat healthy. And like, I'm going to have all my fiber, I'm going to have all my cauliflower, and then I started having symptoms.
Oh,
But
cauliflower is very intense as a
cauliflower,
vegetable.
onions. I
I
eat
suffered.
mushrooms.
Mushrooms are.
Mushrooms are okay, yeah.
I suffered IBS, so to a certain extent, it wasn't a misdiagnosis because I did have IBS.
Yeah. It's just
But-
such a
but
broad thing, isn't it, IBS?
The ovarian cyst wasn't IBS though.
No.
still. Let me just
It wasn't just
be
gas.
clear about that. But
We don't take a photo of IBS.
no. But onions, garlic, cauliflower, certain vegetables can kill you if you
Yeah.
have IBS or if you have a tendency to get gas.
Yeah.
Like they can be so painful. So when I was actually having IBS and being a vegetarian, I
Oh,
had nothing
no.
to eat.
Yeah.
You got the low
Had
FOD
nothing to
map
eat. The
menu and you're
kidneys,
like, I
the
can't eat it.
cauliflower and all of this stuff, like the chickpeas, they used to kill me.
Oh my goodness.
But then thankfully worked through it through many years. But it just goes to show how important diet is.
Yes,
And
yes, big time.
unfortunately, doctors don't talk about diet.
No.
When they're giving you a diagnosis, for example, for endometriosis,
Yeah.
he's not going to actually tell you, listen, these things you should avoid because they will contribute to inflammation in your body and it will worsen your condition.
Zero knowledge.
So
But hang on a second, I'm going to defend us here. We are not taught nutrition.
yes, I know.
And we are not nutritionists.
I know.
That should
I
be
do
part of
refer-
It
it.
should
I
be part
think.
of it.
But I do refer to nutritionists.
Yes, you do.
But it's
You
it's
do.
important. If something is inflamed, just
But
like you
even
said,
when people get cancer, the doctor doesn't mention nutrition to them.
but
They
your
don't
life,
mention
your
diet then at that
life
point.
is what you know. If you take a dog, if you take your pet, I have cats. I don't have a dog, but if you take the dog to the vet because it's been thrown up or having loose stool, the first thing that the vet asks you, what have you been feeding it?
Yes.
And why don't we say that
Yes,
to us?
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah.
So see, so nutrition is very important.
Yeah.
Okay, but no,
Very
I'm
important.
not the expert in nutrition. I know what inflames and all
I
of
don't
that.
expect it from gynae, but
it goes to I refer to my colleagues who are
Yes.
nutritionists because
yes.
they have more time. They can follow up, see what works. You put a food diary together, see what works and what doesn't.
But I
Yeah.
think it's also where we have to take responsibility for our own health in terms of this kind of thing starts at home. And I was very lucky to have parents who always prioritized a good diet,
Yes, yes.
healthy food, organic meat and vegetables. So I was very lucky in that respect. But as I was saying, we need to start teaching ourselves these things.
Mhm.
I agree. It shouldn't be up to us to have to learn everything from scratch. But now we have all the knowledge, we have all the information. We can put two and two together, and
It's kind of been society, hasn't it? We were discussing before we started recording earlier that in August of 2023 was the first time any tampons or Tampax, any manufacturer that made these products that have been around forever, August 2023 was the first time anybody decided to say, let's see if the absorption, let's put some blood on here. Because prior to August 2023, it was saline, water, or just food dye. So we're coming from, you're saying be our own doctor and stuff.
Yeah.
Society's almost been failing us from the beginning, not now, it's August 2023. Let's go. At least now we're putting the right things into that. In 2012, if we just go back to endometriosis for 1 second, in 2012, there was an Italian doctor who decided to do a case study, put some money and do some research on endometriosis. Do you want to know what he did? The attractiveness of women with endometriosis. This was in 2012. So they actually found that some of our bodies were a little bit more. I can't remember what it said now. You can Google this. Everybody, it's there. It's an Italian doctor who actually, after the backlash, tried to get it removed. But yeah, that was funded for endometriosis in 2012. Just like, and so when you're saying it starts at home, now these days it's getting better.
Yes.
But I feel like us at certain ages, it's society's been failing us. So from a point at home, you don't even know where to start.
Yes.
No, that's
it's got
true.
better now, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it just blows my mind, some of this stuff.
And I can relate to Lara here. I'm lucky that my mom was always very questioning and very into other alternatives. But some people don't have that. And maybe, just maybe if a doctor just mentions diet to you just once.
Yeah.
I will put the question mark in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also, I encourage people to do their own research.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of against this idea of don't listen to everything you hear about on the internet. Don't, to a certain extent. When you have a splitting headache and the internet is telling you that you have brain cancer, it's probably not the case. But in my situation, I had been Googling abdominal mass because that's what I felt in me when I had the cyst for a very long time. And the first result was always ovarian cyst or ovarian tumor. And I would always go through this process of no, don't believe what you see on the internet. This is too bad.
You were gaslighting
But
yourself.
that
Diane.
was what it was.
Took the words out of my mouth.
So to a certain extent, if you really feel that something is wrong with your body,
Yeah.
and the people that you're speaking to who are professionals are failing you or just brushing you off or telling you something that does not feel aligned with what you are suspecting, then do continue pushing.
Keep going.
Honestly,
somewhere else. Or go somewhere
Or
else.
go somewhere else,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Second opinion, third opinion, fourth
Oh,
opinion.
yeah, absolutely. That's my advice to anyone. And my advice to you, just as you said earlier, please get diagnosed.
Yeah.
Like keep pushing, keep looking, because to have to live with passing out and things like that, it's no, that's not life.
Yeah, it's risky.
Yeah, it's just not okay. Like that's, you know,
I do feel like I have better control of it now because I understand what triggers it. But yeah, it's not a perfect
but
science.
that's because you've
obviously.
had to.
Yes.
You've kind of had to do that, you
Yeah.
know, and now you've got what works for you, and that's kudos to you, you know, that's incredible, you know, but it's just not what should be happening. You should
Sure.
have care
Mm-hmm.
and a diagnosis and a clear way of what can make you better. You've done it yourself, which is incredible, but it sounds lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Can be. But as I said, I mean, there's a system now, but
Yeah.
I definitely should.
I have
Get a name for
endo
it.
warriors that I speak to online and stuff like that. You probably speak to, like, there's communities out there who, you know, so, you know, Googling what works. I speak to people, you know, people who have endometriosis and I don't know how you say it.
Adenomyosis.
Yeah, both of them, you know, stuff like this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, wow, you know,
Yeah.
mine's nothing. They're like, no, don't be stupid. But it's that conversation just normalizes your pain, your journey and
And it's
stuff like that.
validating too.
And I'm kind of like, I want you to have that. Not that I want you to have endometriosis, but I want you to just have a
Yeah.
diagnosis. So you have a community or someone where you can just like talk about it and feel a little bit more validated.
So this conversation has flowed beautifully. I've actually not asked most of my questions, but we answered them anyway. But I have a few more questions that I would like to kind of visit before we close. So if there was one thing that you could tell your 14-year-old self, something about your body and your period. So imagine also that we have young women watching this show who might be going through what you went through and are still at a stage where they don't know what is happening. What would it be? What would you tell them? What would you tell you at 14 years old?
If I can go first, because I have like,
Of course, go for it.
it's not in your head, it's not embarrassing, and it's real.
Yeah. Mine would be, don't be scared to speak up. Like, what you're feeling isn't normal. So push harder to get some adults or some people to understand you, because I waited too long. So just speak up. I think now I really hope that in 2025, talking about having a period is less of a stigma than it was in 2003 or whatever. But no, speak up, keep pushing. You know, like you said earlier, you know what's wrong with your body. Be your own doctor. Like, just keep pushing. I wish I'd pushed harder and got a diagnosis much faster. I wish I hadn't waited for a big situation to happen.
And Clara, if I had to ask you, like, for young women who may be watching, who are struggling but feel dismissed or ignored, like, what steps do you think that they should take?
Young girls in schools, the conversation is changing now. So there is more awareness. We're trying to remove the stigma relating to periods, and we have the products that are available in schools for free. And the PSCD booklet has been revamped. So the conversation is changing. Okay, we're empowering these young girls to speak up, and there are these mentors and ambassadors, if you will, in schools. Someone who you're comfortable to go to speak to, because it might not be your mum, it might be your aunt, it might be that cool teacher in school.
Yep.
So for these young girls, speak up. With the young women under the age of 16, to go to a gynecologist, we need a guardian or a parent. Above the age of 16, so 16 one day, okay? I don't need anyone to attend with them. Okay, so they can take their own health in their own hands, and they can come to the gynae clinic on their own. Okay, so these young ladies out there who think there's something wrong, they can come to clinic. Okay, and something wrong could also be, I cannot put in a tampon.
Yeah.
Why? Is there something wrong anatomically? And I've had girls come because they were scared to put in a tampon.
Yeah.
They're scared that there's something wrong with their anatomy. And then gently, through gentle examination, and we figured out that there's actually nothing wrong from that aspect. But it's okay. Above the age of 16, please don't be scared to go into a gynae.
Yeah, it's quite daunting to go to a gynae. I remember
Yeah.
it took me quite some time. I mean, the first time I went to a gynae was technically when I was 19.
But it's daunting at any age.
I still feel it now. That's why I haven't
And
been
me,
back for.
I have to go to a gynae as well, remember?
You can't have you,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah.
The science
Oh.
might give us that. You might be able to do it too.
Who knows? Maybe that's ChatGPT. Like, can you do my smear
Yeah.
So we've touched upon like the way that society kind of still views periods, people around us. Like, what's one thing you wish people, parents, teachers, boyfriends, understood about what it really means to live with a problematic cycle?
Having periods is natural. Having bad periods is not. Okay, so we shouldn't suffer periods. I'm going to keep on saying that
Yeah.
because it's become a meme at this point. So it is natural. We talk about it. It's not normal to have bad periods. We talk about it.
I think for me, it would have been mainly the social aspect, because that got wrecked for me quite early on, and I still get tarnished with the same brush today. So it's I wish my family and friends could understand that I'm sat at home watching TV and a flare up. I'm not being lazy. I really don't feel well. I stand up to walk around, and that just that's all my energy gone. I'm in so much pain that my body just wants to sleep or can't sleep, So I wish my family and friends could understand. I think those who are important do, but I've had a lot of people at some point deem me as lazy and flaky, and I think that that's what I would like people to understand the most. And I really just want people to think, like, I have really rubbish periods, but periods are powerful. Like, it's not a shameful thing. World go through. I mean, I'm here because women have periods. Like you said, the conversation is changing, and that really made me smile when you said that, because periods shouldn't be a secret. We shouldn't be split from the boys at school and separated. Boys should know exactly what we're going through as well. Power to the period.
Yeah, it's a good slogan.
Yeah, power to the period.
And we shouldn't suffer periods. We have two memes. Again, I've been very lucky that the people in my life have been always very understanding, very supportive. But just as a general message, just being more open to being empathetic and trying to imagine what the other person is trying to express to you in terms of discomfort and pain and social difficulty. I mean, it's hard to understand, even coming from a male perspective, what a female body could be going through. So again, maybe empathy can flow both ways here.
Yeah.
We can understand that they might not be understanding us, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So just more empathy.
Beautiful. So we're closing off right here, and I always like to close off with the words of wisdom. So what's one message you want to leave for young women going through this right now? If you had one thing that you had to tell them, you've already given a lot of amazing advice, but if there was just one thing, what would it be?
I have to repeat Samy and say, speak up, honestly. It's so important, because that's what gets the conversation started.
And that's why we're here today.
Yeah.
And don't second guess that gut feeling. I think there's so many times we spoke about being gaslit by people or doctors and things, where you kind of, this doesn't feel quite right, and then someone says no. If your gut is telling you that this really doesn't feel right, then listen to your gut. I think that's something to leave with you. Like I say, keep pushing. Just don't question yourself as much. I think you can kind of think, oh, maybe it's not that bad, because no, you know deep down.
Yeah.
So I think in your gut, if your gut and your body is telling you this doesn't feel right, this feels much more painful than Sandra and Sally and Tracy and whatever, please just go and have the conversation, because I mean, it's not normal to have this pain. So push.
Yeah. Absolutely. Speak up and know what could happen if you don't do anything about it, or if you do something about it. Okay, so whether it's a diagnosis or not, can I do something about it? Do I take the pill or not? If I do take the pill, what are the consequences? If I don't take the pill, what are the consequences? So you can watch and wait or not, but you need to know if it's okay to watch and wait.
Mm-hmm. Very well. So thank you all for being here today. I think it's not an easy conversation to have, but I think it was easy for us to have it.
Yeah, I mean, daily on Instagram, I'm always doing this about endometriosis, and I think only 3,000 people follow me. But thank you so much for having me. I think I kept saying in the group chat, I was like, I'm just excited to have this conversation because it's my daily life, and I feel like trying to push it on everybody. But I just wish more people knew what people with endometriosis or irregular, mad periods and things like that are going through. So thank you for having the conversation, having us, because it's, for me, my life and really important. So,
and we're here having it specifically because us having this conversation, being comfortable to talk about these things, is going to help other people to listen to their body, to speak up, all of the brilliant pieces of advices that you all gave, and your expertise, your experiences. So really and truly, like, these conversations are raw, they're real, and they're so overdue. And we need to keep having these conversations until every girl, every woman, every body that menstruates gets the care and understanding that they truly deserve. So thank you for watching, and until next time, we'll see you again.